house tonight. One of them is my quintessential wingman, Lieutenant General Jerry Martinez. What better guy to have as a wingman than an Air Force pilot, and one of the dear friends of our show, veteran actor, always steps up for us whenever we need him. Please welcome back Mr. Joe Mantegna.
Yay!
Yay. Joe, thanks so much for taking the time. I know Danny told me you're all zoomed out.
No, it's okay. Look, for our military, that's my hot button. So, I'm here.
As you said the last time we had you on, that's your peeps.
Those are my peeps. Exactly right.
But I wanted to introduce you to this gentleman here. Every once in a while, I throw him a curveball. I said, Jerry, you want to co-host? He's like, yeah. He goes, who's on? I'm not telling you. So I surprise him, and he's a huge Joe Mantegna fan. This gentleman here was a 3-star general who was the commander for U.S. forces in Japan, and you couldn't find a more nicer individual.
Thank you. It's really nice to meet you, Joe. Really an honor.
No, it's my honor, honest to God, General. Absolutely, without question.
So, Joe, I want to catch up with you a little bit. The last time we talked to you, you were heading into the final season of Criminal Minds, and I know you got a couple of things. I got some stuff I want to talk to you about. The two organizations you're working with. One of them is that they finally opened up the National Museum, the Army National Museum.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I've been their spokesperson kind of for during the whole process of them funding it. I mean, General Abrams approached me some years ago in Washington, D.C. about, and what was great is that this must have been about 5-6 years ago, and he got a message to me. He wanted to meet with me about being the spokesperson for the museum, and every year it was during Memorial Day weekend, and as you know, I've been hosting that Memorial Day weekend with Curious and East now. I've been doing it for 19 years, and I always would bring in my Uncle Willie. My Uncle Willie, one of my many uncles that all fought in World War II. And Uncle Willie fought under General Abrams' father, the original. Well, he may never have been the original. Probably goes back to the Civil War with that family. But the General Abrams, the guy they named the tank after, my Uncle Willie fought with him, with Patton's army under Abrams' command. And so I brought him with me to that meeting. And it was so great to have General Abrams there, the son of the man who commanded my uncle's unit in World War II, and to incorporate him into that whole thing of me being the spokesperson for the museum. And now he passed away finally in about 92, my Uncle Willie, a few years ago. But there is a brick, and it's one of the first bricks that they have the kind of honors different veterans in the entranceway to the museum at Fort Belvoir and outside D.C. And so that was pretty cool, pretty special. So
yeah. Hey Joe, let me ask you: was Uncle Willie the guy who was the photo on your desk that looks like you?
No, the photo on my desk, that's my father's side of the family. That's my Uncle Sam, who was a Marine, and who was on the USS Chicago at Pearl Harbor.
Oh, and wow!
So that was him, and yeah, we do look. I look more like him than I look like my father.
I was so funny. I was like, I didn't know Joe was in the Marines.
Yeah, well, no, that's him, and it was kind of. I think a lot of people just assumed that, that was my dad, and that's why my character was a Marine and all that, which was, all of that was kind of in our thoughts as to when we established my character, because it was very important to me that I have a military background for my character on the show, Criminal Minds, and fortunately, as you may or may not know, depending if you watch the show, but we were able to incorporate it into quite a few of the storylines, which I was very happy about.
I eat, sleep, and drink Criminal Minds, Joe.
Oh, there you go. Now you're talking.
Jerry, go ahead. I'll let you. Yeah.
Ching, that's good.
Well, when you're talking with Joe, man, there's like a thousand things we could talk about here. I've seen your list of whether it's television or theater or movie. I mean, unbelievable the number of things that you have done.
I'm old, General. I'm old. That's all it takes is age.
You're talented. I think that's the word. You're talented. And one of my favorites, though, that I think is really cool, and I read that it was actually a tribute to your Uncle Willie, who you just mentioned, is the voice that you do for Fat Tony.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Is that true right. That it's in honor of your uncle?
It's absolutely true, because my Uncle Willie actually talked like this. This is the way he talked. And so, he he was like you talk about wingman. He was my wingman. My father, my father, that was the only reason my father wasn't involved in the military in World War II, is he was hospitalized during the entire war with tuberculosis, and I finally caught up with him, and he died when I was in my very early 20s. So my uncles, all of my uncles became surrogate kind of fathers for me from that point on. And my mother had 4 brothers, and they were all World War II vets. And Willie was the one I was really closest to. And so I went everywhere with him. I took him everywhere. And so when I first got offered to do that thing on The Simpsons, they brought me in. It was partly because, it's ironically, Godfather 3, they were actually re-releasing it, I think, this weekend, a new version of it, the Coppola was redone. But I just finished that movie, and I guess The Simpsons decided, so this, you got to look, I think this was 1991. So the Simpsons decided they want to bring in this character, Fat Tony. And of course, they contact me, and I'm sure partly because I was Joey Zaza of this movie, Godfather, coming up. So they bring me in, and and I bring my Uncle Willie with me. And what's going through my head is I'm thinking, no, I don't want to sound like Joey Zaza. I mean, I've got this big movie coming out, Godfather 3. I can't be on this cartoon show doing the same guy. I mean, it would be very weird,
Right.
I said, so I'm thinking, well, what can I do? I mean, it's because it's a similar kind of, obviously it's a cartoon, but it is a character from the same occupation, let's put it that way.
Right.
So then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to do an homage to my uncle. And if they stop me, if they say, no, we hate that voice, do something else, then, well, so be it. So anyway, they've got the script there. I do the first line, whatever that first line was with that episode. That was 30 years ago. And I go, hello, how you doing? My name is Fat Tony, whatever it is. Nobody said anything. A couple of people chuckled, and I thought, all right, okay, I'll just keep going. And I'm thinking it was just a one-shot deal. I do it one thing. Right. Willie will get a kick out of it. He'll be able to tell his friends, oh, yeah, Joey, maybe he made the character sound like me. Well, little did I know it was going to be my longest running character. I'm still doing it. I'm doing one Monday, this coming Monday, and this is my 30th year of doing that character.
Oh, wow.
Going in my 30th year of doing Fat Tony. So you have good taste, General. I mean, you actually like that character.
Yeah, well, what's really cool is, I wasn't sure if that was, true. I had heard that. What a way, every time you do an episode, to kind of pay tribute to a guy who had such an impact in your life. Like you said, he stepped in, and the 4 brothers were, kind of father figures to you. That's a really cool thing. And I bet he got a big kick out of that. I'm sure that was really something big to him.
He got a huge kick out of it. And I mean, God bless him. And like I said, I was so close to all of them, and they were all, these are such heroes to me. I mean, Willie fought, like I said, with Patton's army and did that whole campaign in Europe. His brother Jack was on the USS Enterprise, and he was a Marine, Jack. But Halsey had a Marine contingent aboard the ship that were kind of like, the kind of like the whatever name they have it, the guys that are like assistants to him, even though it's obviously a naval ship. And so my Uncle Jack was one of those adjutants, in other words, to Halsey on the Enterprise. My Uncle Tony, the other brother, was a bombardier and was shot down over Italy, and then was taken to a prison camp in Germany and spent a year in a German prison camp, and then got liberated by the Russians, when the war ended. And then Junior, the youngest, he got in very late in the war and was sent to Hawaii, to Pearl Harbor. So we were well represented, obviously, during that conflict. And so that's why all of that has, very important to me.
Yeah,
you're rich in military history. Yeah.
Yeah, and something, those World War II veterans, they are different in my mind than any of the veterans ever. They we fight today with technology. We'll be on the battlefield and we can pull out our cell phone and call to the United States. And, these young men and women, they threw them on a boat and they just were gone, and they were gone. And there were people, I've spoke at like Allied cemeteries in Europe on certain days. And I've done a lot of things with World War II veterans, and they're just so special. There were some that told me when they landed, like for D-Day, they didn't even know where France was. They didn't know where Holland was when they went across Holland. They were just doing what they were told. Amazing. And then the aviators, wow. Today on my airplane, you know, I touch triple GPS and decide where I want to go in the world. And these guys launched in 1,000 ship formations to go across Europe, you know, to go bomb ball bearing plants, you know, to go bomb oil fields. And they had to find their way home, you know, through just a mess. They're amazing.
Oh yeah, in the year 2000, I did a movie in France. It was a comedy. I did it with George Hamilton and Danny Aiello, and I did this comedy, and we shot it mostly in Paris, and we shot it also in Madrid, Spain. And one of the locations was the chateau in a town called Rambouillet, which is just outside, about an hour and a half outside Paris. And I remember the first day of shooting there, beautiful town. We pull into the town, and I'm thinking, how good is my life? I mean, I'm going to make a movie. I'm doing this comedy. I'm in France. I mean, how good is this? And as I pull into the town, I see these flag poles, and I see the French flag on one, and I see the American flag on the other. I'm going, well, what's this? I mean, we're in a small little town. What could this be? It can't be an embassy or something like. And as we get closer, and I said to the driver, I says, what is this? And then he explains to me, he goes, oh, that's the cemetery. I said, well, let's go there. Let's stop there. We're a little early. And I go in there, and here's this little town, small little town, Rambouillet, France. And here's this military cemetery. And I walk in, and there they are, all those white crosses. And boy, talk about getting humbled and being able to say, look at that. These are all these young men.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the ones not like my uncles who all came back. You know, here they are, and they're not even, it's not like they're in, you know, not like they're even in Paris or some place. Here they are in a small little town that they, like you said, they probably didn't even know where France was when they got here. And now they're forever buried in this small little town that's not even a lot of tourists maybe know about.
Wow.
And boy, when you see something like that, you know.
You know, something that was really touching to me, Joe, is I spoke at a cemetery in the Netherlands in a town called Margraten. And there was about 8,000 or 9,000 service members buried there from World War II. But one of the coolest things is, first, it's pristine, right? I mean, they keep it immaculate.
Right.
But I was talking to the person who runs the Allied Cemetery at large, and they were telling me there's like a 2,000 or 3,000 person waiting list to get to be the caretaker of a grave.
Wow.
I mean, this is how many years after World War II, and these Dutch families, they adopt basically a grave, and they always make sure it's pristine. They make sure it has flowers on Memorial Day. They do all these things, and there's a waiting list to even get a grave. And this is, you know, that many years later. And I stood there, and it just shows you how people appreciate freedom, right?
Oh, yeah.
These young soldiers gave them freedom.
You know, we live in a country where, because of our geographic location, we've never had to experience that thing of like Holland did, in the sense where your neighboring country in like basically 2 weeks rolls over you and shows up and becomes the dominating force in your country.
Right.
So, I mean, you can only imagine what that's like. I actually spent a good amount of time in Holland back in the 70s doing theater, and we traveled all over, played all out of different cities. And as you can imagine, even back then, and of course, they've gotten past it, and they should have gotten past it. But even back then in the early 70s, there was that feeling, even among the young people in Holland, there was that thing about, you know, they had a very strong fondness for the Americans, but still had a little kind of, the thing about Germany was like, you know, was still in their minds, because their parents were still around and their grandparents were still around.
Oh, yeah.
There was you couldn't even, like, we were doing a play, and the bunting for the theater was, we brought this bunting, and it was yellow, black, and whatever the colors. And they said to us, they said, you really can't hang that bunting in the theater, because that's the colors of the German flag. And people aren't going to react. They're not going to get it. That this is part of your, because it was a play. It was a comedy about these Mexican guys, and the Mexican colors of the flag are similar to the German colors. They said, no, you got to. We had to rip one of the colors off the bunting, but it made you realize, made you think. Of course, we've never been occupied. Can you imagine what that would be like if, like, you know, if Canada occupied the United States? We might have some ill will toward Toronto from then on, you know. But it just goes to show this is heavy stuff, and, you know, thank God we move past it and we go on. But there's always something new popping up, and something you have to deal with, and all that.
Well, we owe those veterans, man, and thank you to your family for all that service. Unbelievable to have that many people served in World War II. That was America's greatest generation. You know, they truly were. So thank you.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
my pleasure. Thank you.
Joe, one of the things I always wanted to mention to you, I love the fact that you do the Memorial Day concert every year. You're committed to that. One of the greatest things I've ever heard an actor say is that, and that to me shows that you truly appreciate it. You said it transcends what you do as an actor. I remember
Well,
that
it is.
clip.
It's the most important thing I do every year, and I mean that. I'm honest, because it's the thing. It's not only that. I'll tell you, it's the revelation that I made when I first did it. Because I own up to it that Memorial Day wasn't that big a deal for me up until I started doing that concert. And I say that only because while I had all this military in my family, they all came back. You know, I got very lucky that way. They all showed up, and as you know, General, they don't. Those guys don't talk about it. They never talked about it. It wasn't a big part of our lives. We all knew they were veterans, but
Right.
it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, they fought in the war. Okay, great, you know. But when I did that first Memorial Day concert, and I went there, and the whole thing struck me, and I look out at this a couple 100,000 people out there, and then they had the wounded guys there, and I visited guys at Bethesda and all that, and then I started looking at my life. And I'm thinking, oh my God! I said, Memorial Day. We're doing this for those people, these men and women.
Yeah.
Like I said, and having been to Rambouillet and instances like that, it made me realize not only is Memorial Day important, it's the most important holiday we celebrate in this country. And I from that point on, I constantly try to, preach that when ask that question, like, well, what do you think about, you've been doing this concert, what do you think about Memorial Day, why do you do that? Because of that holiday is the only reason we have any other holiday. Without the honor we pay on Memorial Day, we have no business to be talking about a 4th of July or an Easter or a Christmas or a Labor Day or President's Day. None of them would exist without the sacrifices that our military have made since the beginning of the inception of this country. So for me, Memorial Day now and forever will be our most important holiday. And that's why it's important to me. And that's why for me, it's such a privilege to do that concert every year and to be able to say, let's pause for a minute. Let's we set this day aside, just take a minute and look around you and thank your blessings that we live in such a great country and freedom ain't free, as we all know, and somebody's paying the price. Thank God that they're doing that.
Yeah. Joe, this pandemic is so terrible. And, I've stopped watching the news because it's just so vicious. Listen, I want to be informed. I get it. I want to make sure that I'm keeping myself safe and my loved ones. But you know what the news cycle reminds me of, Joe? Remember they did that broadcast years ago, War of the Worlds?
Yeah.
It reminds me of that, where everybody's getting panicky and they're jumping out of windows because they're scaring the shit out of everybody.
Right.
Listen, I know it's a serious thing, but I just think
of course. But the other thing I say about it too is, I say when people start saying, "Oh my God, do you believe this? Can we handle this? Is this ever going to stop?" And I said, you know what? This is our World War II. I said the generation, at least above mine, I think of my parents and stuff like that. I said that's what they went through, and they got through it, and millions of people perished, around the world. I mean, and so we're fighting this thing. We'll get through it. It's tough. It's unfortunate. But nobody gets a free ride, in life. Everybody's got a story, and if 2020 is going to be a hell of a story in the history of the world, not just America. But we got, we're lucky that we have the advances and knowledge we have to combat this stuff. We just
the USA usually bounces back, so
we'll get through it.
Joe, you had 15 years on Criminal Minds. That's a long time to work and an impressive body of work even before that. And so you're so used to that regimented every day, the cast is like a family. And then now there's life after Criminal Minds, and now we're stuck with this downtime. How are you embracing it? Are you welcoming the rest, or you're anxious to get back in front of the camera?
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel very blessed to have had the life I've had and the career I've had. I mean, I play pretend for a living. You know what I mean? I do what little kids do for fun on the playground. It's like when people, I did 13 years on Criminal Minds. So the show ran 15, but I did 13 of the 15. But when people would ask me the question, they say, "Hey, doesn't it freak you out to do a show like that? I mean, because it's so weird and it's so violent, and gory, and this." I said, no, it doesn't freak me out at all. I said, because when I shoot a scene like that, all of a sudden somebody will yell, cut. And then I reach over and I grab a sandwich. And then the guy who's on the floor has got an axe in his head. He gets up and he pulls the axe out and he gets the sandwich. And I said, you got to understand, that's what I do for a living. I said, talk to the guys I portray. Now, this is a real organization. Talk to the guys who really did it. Ask them what freaks them out.
Yeah.
You know, that's the one. The same thing, and it applies to the military. It'd be like if you're doing the movie, you're doing let's say, you know, pick any war movie you want. And if you tell the actor, oh man, didn't it freak you out? Wasn't it weird you playing that guy? No. Talk to the guy who I portrayed, the guy who was in the foxhole, the guy who was ducking from the bombs or was being tortured in the prison camp. No. So, I mean, so you're asking me, what do I do? I'm busy with things. I got a lot of stuff going. I've got stuff coming up for when things obviously get safe again.
Oh,
so I've
cool.
I've got no complaints. I mean, life's been, as Chico Escuela said, life's been very, very good to me. So,
I've been keeping myself uplifted. I watch a lot of comedies and just try to keep in the spirit stuff on YouTube. But I tell you what, I gotta say, you were like the hidden gem of Criminal Minds, because you used to come up with whoppers. And I don't know if it was in the script or not, or you have, but there's a couple of scenes where, like, I think you just came back for the new season and you're walking with Matthew Gray, who played Spencer, and you're like, he's got like this new haircut. And he's like, what did you do? Join a boy band over this?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I always wanted to, I even told him from the inception when I first joined the show, I said, you know, I got to bring a little humor to this thing, because because one thing I learned, I did this movie Homicide years ago, and it was a very dark,
David Mamet,
heavy movie, the David Mamet film. And I remember I had to meet with these Baltimore homicide detectives as part of the research. And so they came in to meet with William H. Macy and I, because he played my partner in the film. And they said, so you want to know what it's like to be a homicide detective, huh? They said, okay. And they had this thing with them. And it was their murder book. And they dropped it on the table. And they said, here, we'll show you what we do every day. And they start flipping through these photos.
Oh, wow.
Now, these are photos, like, they are more horrific than you can ever imagine. And now, you know, by the third photo, Macy's going, I think I got a costume fitting. I gotta go. He comes out. And I'm thinking, I'm not cutting out. I'm in. Let's go, boys. Let's see what you got. You know. But the point being, after they showed me that, they said, look, we just wanted to let you know this is just some serious stuff, and this stuff affects you. He says, that's why sometimes we have almost like gallows humor, that we have to kind of play with each other. Because if we don't do it, we'll go nuts.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah.
And he goes, and that's why I got so many guys that you know, talk about PTSD. Maybe there's a way of somewhat counteracting it. You got to find humor even in these most macabre kind of things.
Yeah.
So my character, I wanted to bring elements of that to my character when possible.
You did, yeah. And then there was another scene. There was another scene where Prentice gets poison ivy, and she's looking at it. She goes, Rossi, how come you're not scratching? And you just stood with a straight. He goes, I'm Italian. It knows better.
Yeah. So yeah, I was always looking for any opportunities to do something like that. In fact, when I first joined the show, I said, you know who I want my character to be somewhat reminiscent of? Anybody who watched the old series Lost in Space. I wanted to be Dr. Smith.
Oh my God! The pain.
He was kind of, he was the pain. He was like the curmudgeon. He was the kind of guy that mixed it up a little bit. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, we tolerate him because he's a little older than the rest of us.
So I tell you what, I'm late to the party on this one, Joe, but I'm really become over the past 6 months I'm a big proponent of the St. Pio Foundation.
Good.
And
Great.
I like that organization. I've been doing everything I can to help support them too, because we had Robert Davi on, who's a big proponent of that, and he was talking about that something he was trying. He had a video out, and every time you watch it, they made a donation. But I thought it was a fantastic organization. That being said, though, I mean, you seem like you're handling the pandemic okay. I know you're not able to go over Michael Tucci's house and cook right now, but
yeah, there you go.
You know, and trade recipes. But you know, that being said, how was your wife with the restaurant? Was that affected or?
Well, you know, we actually, timing is everything. After 16 years, my wife closed the restaurant about 11 months before the COVID thing happened.
Oh wow!
Because we just had enough. It was just like the restaurant business is very, very difficult. And it was great times, great fun. I mean, 16 years was a good run. And it was, we had this restaurant called Taste Chicago. So it was all Chicago-oriented food. It was in Burbank, California. I mean, Jay Leno would come almost every Saturday. He would drive up. We had an eclectic clientele. It was wonderful. But it's a tough business. And in the restaurant business, ultimately, you got to go big or go home nowadays. In other words, you better be like, you either franchise and do 1 million of them. But if you just got that one little mom and pop joint, that becomes your life.
Right.
And it was kind of like, you know what? It's time to move on. It's time to go. And so it was her restaurant. It was always her dream fulfilled. We let it go. We had a big party at the end. We had thousands of people show up. I saw the Cubs win the World Series there.
Yeah.
That satisfied a 108-year-old dream. So after that, we let it go. But then the COVID thing happened. And so it was kind of, my heart goes on to the
next chapter now, right?
Yeah, whatever that may be.
Jerry, I don't want to make sure you get enough time.
Yeah. So, Joe, a couple things. One, talking about humor, on the set of Criminal Minds, I was scrolling around YouTube, I don't know, some time ago, and I saw this clip of you, and it basically it said like a day in the life of Joe, on the set. I don't even know if you remember making it.
I did that. They're right. The press people kind of did. They did like a day. They did that. They followed us around, and I don't even remember what I did, to tell you the truth.
Well,
so I remember they did that.
What I found interesting with it was how funny it was. You were teasing your makeup people that the reason you get makeup is because you're so good looking that they have to kind of dress you down, actually, to fit your characters in the role. And they were all laughing. And you talked about your hairdresser and said, I don't even know if it's true, but you said she's from Bogota, doesn't speak any English, and all the other people were laughing around her. And you said something like she knows how to laugh in English, but she can't speak English or something.
That's right.
And
that's right. Actually, that's true. She was from Colombia. She spoke perfect English, but I like the busted chops. That's all.
But it really showed, though, how you like to bring humor into what you're doing, and you could tell the people really enjoyed being around you like that.
Well, I hope so. That's the other thing. Like, when you're in film or television, there's a thing that's called a call sheet that everybody gets. At the end of the day, you get the call sheet for the next day, and it's kind of like your roadmap of what you're going to do tomorrow.
Right.
And it has everything on it: your location, what time you got to be there, and it's a list of everybody, the crew, everybody's on it. What time your lunch is. It's very important, and you get it every day. But there's a pecking order on that call sheet, and so in our business, there's a term, who's number one on the call sheet, and in essence, it's like being the guy, like when you're the general and you've got those old people under you. So if I was number one on the call sheet for Criminal Minds, so that means you're setting the tone in essence. So in other words, the way you go, if now you've given permission to everybody from 2, 3, 4, 5, and that call sheet, depending if you have a lot of guest actors, it could go on to 50 or something.
Oh, wow.
So what you learn in this business is that if that person number one has got a certain attitude or a certain behavior, he's now given permission to everybody 2, 3, 4, 5 to kind of like, okay, I guess it's okay to do this.
It's okay for you, then it's okay for them.
Yeah. And so I took that very, very seriously because many times I've been number 5 or 20 or 6 or 11, and you just kind of have to go with the flow. But I always said to myself, if that day comes when I'm number one on the call sheet, I'm going to try to set the tone of like, if nothing else, hey, look, we're all lucky to be here. We're lucky to be in this profession. Life's tough enough. The work is tough enough. Let's just try to get through this. And I learned from other people. Tom Hanks is a good friend and somebody I worked with early on, back when he was even doing the series Bosom Buddies. I did a guest shot on that.
Wow. Yeah.
So Tom is that kind of guy. And so here you got a guy has reached the very top, rungs of my profession. And yet he's that kind of guy. And I learned from Tom that, you treat the guy who's the last guy in the call sheet or the guy who's just sweeping up in the parking lot the same way you would treat, Sir Laurence Olivier if he walked in the room. Right. And you do that, and then you've got a happy environment, and then everything just works better. So it's my pleasure to do that. That's all.
Yeah, and that's just a good lesson in life. It's about treating people with dignity, and exactly. Even as a general, I would be in my office, and they always had like teams that would come in and they make sure it's clean and all those kind of things, and I was a guy who I always just took a second and talked to them. They're just people like me. You know, I am no better than them. And
oh yeah,
we would just chat it up, and I'd learn about their families and what they're doing. And I always complimented, I go, man, this is the nicest, carpet that I've seen in the building. I would always make sure they felt good and knew what they were doing was important. So I just wanted to thank you for that, because I saw that in that clip, and I thought I look at things in a leadership perspective, being my background. And I was like, that's really good leadership. You can tell that he's setting a tone, and the people around him are comfortable. They're actually having fun.
Oh yeah, well that's why you retired as a lieutenant general and not a private. You know what I mean? There was a reason that you went up the ladder. You know what I mean?
Hey,
Jerry, work out that way.
Jerry, tell them the story about how like it used to be funny. Like if when you and your wife used to go shopping, they used to like want to see what does a general buy?
Yeah. One of the things when you go to what we call General Officer Charm School, we go to a school and they tell us how to be a general when we get to that point in our life. And one of the things they told us was that they go, everybody's going to watch you now, and you have to be really, really careful, because you won't even know it, and people are watching what you're doing. And so my wife and we would go to our commissary, which is like our super Walmart, right in the military on the base. And sure as heck, everybody we would walk by, they're like, hello, General. And then you could see them. They would look in our cart to be like, what does the general eat? And what do they live?
See, like it's any different than what they're eating.
Yeah. I think that they have this perception, we live on caviar and all that, and then they look in my cart and they see Fruit Loops. They see Fruit Loops.
They want to get the general vitamins, exactly. They figure
they want to carry your bags. They want to carry your bags out to the car.
Yeah, it's fun.
Great.
It was fun. Hey, Joe, one of my favorite things I think that I love that you do, I'm from Oklahoma. So bear with me that I grew up with a gun in my hand at 8 years old. You get your first weapon. And you're on Gun Story, not on Gun Stories. You are Gun Stories, on the Outdoor Channel. And I've seen that, and I go, wow, what an interesting predicament, because the world you live in, i.e. Hollywood, is not always necessarily, pro Second Amendment and things like that. And it seems like you found a really good way. I've seen some interviews you've done where you really explain your position, but you do it without hostility. You do it in a way that is inclusive, and you respect the other people's opinions, but you also have your way. And no joke, this isn't a setup. This is the truth. Sitting right here, I just bought a 9mm shield a couple days ago.
There you go. Very good.
It's sitting on my desk, and
good choice.
And I was like, I had no idea I'd be talking to Gun Stories, and I got my gun sitting right here. That was just a coincidence.
Listen, on top of that, did you happen to catch the episode that we shot in Krebs, Oklahoma?
No, I haven't seen that one.
I'm going to get you that episode. I'm going to make sure you see this episode, because here's the deal. My father was born and raised in Krebs, Oklahoma. We still own the farm, which you may or might not know. Krebs is considered the Little Italy of Oklahoma.
Really?
Just outside of, and that's all my dad talked about was Krebs growing up, because it was one of these things. I mean, I won't go into the whole story now, but my grandfather came over from Sicily in like 1907. And what they had said was, they said, there's these coal mines in Oklahoma. If you work in those coal mines, you can get enough money and buy farmland. And I've been to the town in Sicily he was from, and the only thing you can grow there is old, because it's like on the top of a mountain, it's rock, it's nothing.
Yeah.
So in 1907, my grandfather comes from Sicily, goes to Krebs, Oklahoma, works in the coal mines for 5 years, saves $500, because we have the bill of sale, we have all this stuff. My brother is into all of that genealogy. He buys this he buys it from the Native Americans, because it was still Indian territory. He buys the land. It's a 50-acre farm in Krebs. The next door neighbors are the Randazzos. There's all Italian farms all around there, because they all worked in the coal mines. They were all friends. They all came from the same town called Calascibetta in Sicily, and they all moved to Krebs. And that's why there's this place called Pete's Place that's been there since then. You may have heard of it, Pete's Place. It's an old Italian restaurant. It's there. They drink the chalk beer and they do all of that, but it's very Italian. Anyway, we shot an episode of Criminal Minds there, and I shoot it on the remnants of the house my father was born in. It's all a tornado hit it, so it's all kind of rubble now. But I'm sitting on there. I'll get you the episode, because the whole episode is shot there. And the great thing about it is my cousin Johnny, one of my uncle's sons, he inherited my grandfather's shotgun. My grandfather died before any of us were born, but anyway, he inherited the shotgun. He brought it to Krebs, and in the episode, you see me shooting my grandfather's 12 gauge on the farm, and it's the first time somebody shot it, since then. And my grandfather is buried. He's buried in Henrietta, and the gravestone is all in Italian. It says Mantegna, Marta. It's got all in Italian the words on it. So I have a very strong Oklahoma connection. The only reason I wasn't born there myself is when my grandfather died on the farm, my grandmother packed up all the kids, my dad included, who was a teenager then, and she had like 8 kids, and moved everybody to Chicago because that's where she had family. So my only reference in life was growing up in Chicago. I'd always heard about Oklahoma, the farm, Oklahoma. But it wasn't until that I really was able to spend time there and experience it. And so, we're both Okies in heart. Mario and me. I'm gonna get to. You'll love this episode.
I gotta find it. That's amazing.
Was that the episode? And was this in Criminal Minds or was this in Gun Stories?
No, this is Gun Stories.
I thought you were talking about when they first tapped you to go to the BAU. You were hunting with dogs.
Yeah, that was my first episode. Well, that was the other thing. Cause it brings up what you're talking about, the Second Amendment. What I try to stress is the Second Amendment is not a political amendment. It doesn't define somebody's politics.
No, absolutely.
There's a reason it was the Second Amendment. The first one being, what it is, the freedom of speech. That's why they made that one the second one, because they knew they had to have something to be able to ensure you can keep that first one. And so that's not political. That's democracy. That's America. That's who we are. And to shy away from that or try to put a political spin on it and say, no, if you're into the Second Amendment, then you must be this guy. No, I'm not going to accept that, and I will always fight against that, and also show that, and I know Hollywood gets branded that way, and some actors tend to be vocal about it. And to me, I don't care. You be vocal about it on either side, but then don't be a hypocrite either. Don't be on one side saying, "Oh, this is terrible. This, another." Then you make your living on billboards going like, "Yay, bang, 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 bang." You can't have it both ways.
That's right.
So my feeling is I've met some of the greatest people in the world in the firearms industry, and I'm very proud of that. And
is the other series still going, Joe? The Hollywood Weapons?
Hollywood Weapons they're not sure they're going to pick it. And that was created by my assistant, Dan Ram.
Dan,
He did a wonderful job on that. And they did 3 or 4 seasons of it. It's a wonderful show. We had, Terry, the host, who's a former,
Jerry, did you ever see that show?
Yeah,
no,
check out Hollywood Weapons.
Basically, what they do is they reenact scenes in movies like the Quigley Down Under. Can the gun really shoot that far? If you shot the oxygen tank in Jaws, would it really explode?
Yeah.
They did all these reenactment, fantastic series.
Yeah, it was great. It was really.
I got it. I'll find it. I'll watch it. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
You know
what's interesting?
Yeah. Joe, you were talking about your grandfather. So my great-grandfather, not my grandfather, but my great-grandfather, Attilio Tarfelli, came from Italy and went through Ellis Island, checked in, and it was sort of the same story. Came with nothing in his pockets and just found a job kind of ranching out in like New Mexico and that area, and built up enough money where he bought land and he made something with this chasing that American dream. But what was really cool about my grandfather, he was the absolute cheapest guy you've ever met in your life. Thrifty, I mean, on a level that you cannot even imagine, right? And the story that I'm the most proud of is my great-grandfather. We got a big family. Whenever you got married, you would get your envelope from him, kind of like the Godfather almost, right? You get your envelope and he would give you your cash. Yeah. And you open it up and it was $1. He used to give everybody $1, for your wedding. And when my wife and I got married, we got a $5 bill. My whole family freaked out.
Yeah,
special.
Yeah.
How did you
they were like, "What did you do to get a $5 from Grandpa Tilio?" is what we called him, But the deep Italian, those deep Italian roots, man, I get them. My one side of my family, it's all Italian, and a lot of love for family, big family. My family likes to eat. It's just they value good food, you know, and fresh homemade noodles and the whole thing. So
That's great.
it's kind of fun to hear your background, in a weird way they're very similar.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's great. That's great.
Joe, let me ask you, this year, you know, with the COVID, I was actually worried, but I knew you pulled it off. You did get the Memorial Day concert off. I didn't see it. Usually I watch it every year.
We did.
How much of a challenge was it? And what did you did everything like virtually,
Well,
I guess?
we did. It was a combination of that. In other words, Gary and I we you know, give the Gary Sinise Foundation. I'm one of his ambassadors, which is, you know, he has this tremendous foundation that helps, you know, veterans, you know, with housing and all kinds of things. Anyway, he has these offices out here in California, in the San Fernando Valley. And so what we did is we went to Gary's office, and he basically has a media room. It's with a large, very huge screen television in there. So what we did is Gary and I filmed there for, I think, over at least a day or two, doing the ins and outs. And then what we would do is basically just like we would do when we're doing it live in Washington. We're up there, we're talking about the different things, and then we would throw it to the screen. And then what they had done, they had pre-shot some people in Washington, like some of the talent had flown in, and they were like up on rooftops, so they can be kind of, you know, like if it was like Trace Atkins, like the singer, he had his band up on a rooftop overlooking, so you could see the Capitol in the background, and they sang a song.
Oh wow!
But they were safe, and they were, you know, everything was done, you know, safely. And so then that's how they would perform that. And then so there were different acts that did that, and then we also did, you know, the concert's been on for like 30 something years now. Yeah. So we were able to use clips from previous concerts as well for certain things, you know. So it was it was actually, it came off really well, I thought, because it was a combination of things that made the show kind of special. And so I was actually very, you know, very happy with it. And God willing, this coming Memorial Day, you know, hopefully we'll be in a position
go back to normal,
kind of go back to normal and do it there.
Absolutely. One of the things I wanted to make sure I talk about today, and Jerry, you can relate to this. You're also help another organ. You just did this recently during the pandemic with Veterans United.
Yeah, that was something. Well, I met this Pam Swan who works, you know, with Gary's foundation, and but her main job is working with this Veterans United, which is this mortgage company that supplies, you know, mortgages for vets. Well, what they decided to do as part of this pandemic thing was to pay off mortgages for like 10 or something like 10 to 12 selected, very, you know, needy, worthy vets who had gotten like their first home, but it was difficult, and they were just you know, they'd struggled, but were able to get that mortgage. So they picked these individuals, men and women, and basically paid off their mortgage. And what was great is they had, like, Gary did a couple, I did a couple. They had a couple other guys, the different actors, and sometimes just other vets go on Zoom with them. They don't know this is gonna happen to them. They're on Zoom, but they basically think we're just saying hello and wishing them well and all this. But then when we tell them that Veterans United has just paid off their entire mortgage, I mean, you know, I'm Italian. It don't take much for me to start crying anyway. So, but I kind of, you know, I lost it in both instances when I had to, because you see it on their faces. And like there was this one couple that they had just like, they were so thrilled to be in this home. Finally, they had a home. Because they picked people that were basically living in their cars or trucks.
Yeah.
But yet it saved enough money to get that first, you know, mortgage, to get that home, at least get in there and maybe hopefully be able to hold on to it. And boy, to see that happen, you know, it gave you faith in this world. You know, my hat's off to that company, Veterans United, for doing that. And it was a privilege for me to be the conduit. I mean, I felt like the guy in It's a Wonderful Life, you know, that angel that comes down and says, yeah, hey, look how good you've done, you know. It's great.
Yeah,
it's like that was
Joe, there's no doubt that you have done so much, and that's nobody's ever going to forget the contributions you've made over the years. I'll tell you what does disturb me, though, and Jerry, you know Gretchen Smith. She has this organization called Code of Vets, and during the pandemic, Joe, the homelessness for veterans went up. How does that? How do we as a listen? I understand. How do we as a society? There's three things I'm passionate about: kids, cancer, and veterans. Those are my three things that I'll go above and beyond for.
I know.
How does there was vets that needed their phone bills paid and they were getting homeless, and one guy needed a wheelchair ramp built, and nobody was helping these. What's wrong with people?
You know, it's a lot of it is that, it's that old saying, out of sight, out of mind. And so or the thing about dogs of war. In other words, when called for and when needed, it's like all of a sudden all that attention goes there. But as soon as that need kind of dissipates, it's almost like, oh, we can just kind of like, lock up the dogs of war and keep them aside, and we don't have to worry about them anymore. And that's always been a problem. I mean, and I mean, that's part of the reason even why on Criminal Minds, one of the things I was very grateful for with CBS, because and Dan co-wrote the very first episode. It was like a 3-4 episode arc that dealt with my career in the military. And one thing that CBS allowed me to do is we called attention to this real place called New Directions for veterans, which is located in Los Angeles. It's right near the Veterans Cemetery there in Westwood. Right. And what it is, it takes in homeless veterans who have been either for whatever reasons they're homeless, whether they're drug addicted, alcohol, whatever, and they clean them up and they run it like the military. I mean, you got to earn your stripes while you're in there, and then they teach you a trade and they do all that. And they allowed me to actually do this whole storyline involving my former, supposedly my former officer in Vietnam.
Oh, Meshack,
Meshack Taylor. And
my favorite episode.
On the streets of LA, and I find him and I bring him to New Directions, and he starts living there. So the fact that I was able to, at first people thought it was some fictional place, and then they realized, they Google it and go, wow, that really is that place.
Yeah, you never know when you're watching a TV show if it's real or not.
Of course not. But thank God they allowed me to do that, and because I directed 2 of those 3 episodes that dealt with Meshack's character, and so that was just very important, and it is such an important issue. So all you can do is just call attention to it as much as you can, when you can, where you can. And just let people know that, look, we all have a lot to be grateful for, even in times like now. And let's not forget those who've made it possible.
Yeah. Well, one of my like I was saying, that arc of episodes was my favorite, Don. That and the replicator stuff. But I love he was your real life friend, and I love the chemistry, and I love when you were like, permission to state the obvious, and Meshack was permission denied. It was just so funny the way you still go back and forth.
No, and then at the end, that he had passed it when he really passed away. The actor passed away after that 2nd episode. And again, thank God, there were showrunner, everybody was on board of like, we got to address this. And we did that whole episode that dealt with his passing and his funeral. And that last moment you see in the episode, when you see me put my hand on that coffin, I mean, I'm saying goodbye to that character, but I'm also saying goodbye to the godfather of my children in life, one of my dearest and oldest friends, Meshack Taylor. And so I'm so forever grateful I've had that opportunity to where art imitates life, and vice versa. And then the other thing was, those were all Vietnam veterans at the funeral, real Vietnam vets. They brought all these real Vietnam vets in for it. And the guy the general, that's why I've talked about the 3-star thing. The guy who knelt down, who's the African-American general, who's holding the flag and says to the family, on behalf of the United States of America, that's General Willie Williams, 3-star general, who gave, along with David Mamet, gave the speech for me when I got my star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, because I wanted the military to be represented when that happened for me.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I flew Willie Williams, and along with his Ron Coleman, the other 3-star, his buddy. There's only been 5 African-American 3-star generals in the history of the Marine Corps, which goes back, as we all know, pretty far. And, Willie, I think, Ron was number 3 and Willie was number 4. And I had them both there. And I did the line I use in the episode is I go, 2 of my general cigar buddies from Washington, I think, for the funeral. But these were the real deal. These were the real guys.
That's great.
So, that meant the world to me.
That's great. Wow.
Jerry, go ahead. I know you got a few questions.
Yeah, I'm going to go a way different topic here. Am I right, Joe, that like way back when, were you part of the band Chicago, or had something to do with the band or forming it or something like that?
Well, no, I never was in the band, but I to this day, I'm still very close to them. And in fact, just a few weeks ago, they got their Lifetime Grammy Award. They did a show on PBS, and I was the one that presented it to them. They taped us all, you know, and and it was great. I got to tell a little story, which basically is this: I was in a band in the '60s in the city of Chicago, but our band was called the Apocryphals, and we were a good cover band. We worked a lot. We were, you know, we were popular. We're fine, but we were a cover band. We cut a few records, but we mainly were popular because we were very good at doing top 40, whatever it was. If we would go into African American neighborhoods, we'd play soul music and wear the white suits like the Temptations. When we would go into the hippie neighborhoods, we put on Paisley and we'd play that music. Yeah. Well, there was this group called the Missing Links at the time, and they were playing with us in the city. We were playing at the Kentucky State Fair, Louisville. And they were there to back up the other solo acts like Bobby Sherman and Cannibal and the Headhunters. They let them play one or two songs of their own, but they were just great musicians. But we were one of the stars. We were this great cover band. We're playing all the hits. So we got to like these guys because they were such great musicians, because we're thinking, wow, they can really read music. They really know what they're doing. So now we're playing at a gig called the Cheetah in Chicago, which they had one in New York. It was a very popular club back in the 60s. These guys from the Missing Links, there were three of them: the sax player Walter, guitar player Terry Kath, and the drummer Danny Seraphin. They come to see us play, and then during the breaks they say, "You know what? We're leaving that band. We're starting our own band, because the Missing Links, the father of the one guitar player, he ran the band, and they wanted to go their own way, the other three guys." Right. They said, "We're going to add a trombone. We're going to add a trumpet. We're going to add a keyboard. We're going to have 7 guys, and we're going to call ourselves Chicago Transit Authority. And we're going to do that." And we're like, "Oh, that's great. Oh, good idea. That's great." As soon as they left, we went, "These guys are nuts. Why would they take a band and add guys where you got to split up the money more?" We says, they've lost their minds. Yeah. You know, but we think, okay, well, you know, let them go. And initially it was difficult for them. They would play, and this literally happened once. And in fact, they told the story themselves, that they got fired at one job because they would refuse to play top 40 stuff. They wanted to play their own stuff, but they didn't have any records out yet. So the band, the owners of the club called us. We had a night off that night. They called us. They said, "Could you guys get down here? And we're letting the band go. The kids hate them. We want you to finish the night."
Oh,
we
wow.
Go, "Yeah, we can do it." We packed up our stuff. We drove out there. They're packing their stuff up to leave, and you can see they're upset, but they're not at us, but they're upset. And we're like, "Oh, fellas, yeah, you know this." And we're thinking, why don't you just smarten up? Well, needless to say, it was like about a year later. You don't hear from them for a while. They were off recording and doing their thing. About a year later, that album comes out, that first Chicago album. And it was like, okay, hello. You know, now we see what they were up to. And by that time, I had kind of made my shift into acting. I got cast in to play Hair. This was 1969. I had to make that decision: do I stay in music? Do I do theater? But my heart was really being an actor, and I knew the band. We were a good band, and I loved doing it, but we weren't really going anywhere. We're now Chicago, of course. Boom, zoom. Right. And so I've been close to them ever since. And they brought me up on stage at the Greek Theater a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. And they had me sing lead on one of the songs with them.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
That was a real thrill. So I'm still very close to the band, and they're still, but that's the story. No, I never was a member of Chicago, but I'm about as close as you can get, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a cool story. Wow. What's funny is how you guys are like, "Man, these guys are nuts," and all that. And then look what happened. They exploded.
Oh, yeah. They exploded. And rightly so. I mean, it's incredibly talented. You know, they've had hits for five decades. So.
Oh yeah, I love their music. They're fantastic. Wow, thank you. I appreciate that background.
No, my pleasure.
I've been watching a lot of movies. You know, I'm running out of stuff to watch, but I come across a lot of your stuff, Joe. And I mean, to pick your favorite Joe Mantegna movie is like trying to say what's your favorite Beatles song. But two of them I just recently saw was Bugsy.
Yeah.
And Things Change with Don Amici. Oh my God. When you stole the Vegas mob Don's car, and you're like, what kind of guy doesn't keep gas in his car? Just a little interaction. What was it like working with like Warren Beatty and Don Amici? I mean,
Well, it was great. I mean, it's like it's old Hollywood. I mean, they're talking about royalty, Hollywood from different generations, but both of them. It was just great. I mean, it's funny. I just did a whole press tour thing for Things Change, because in England they're re-releasing this whole like a special edition of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, kind of like they do with the Criterion Collection here in the States, where they take a movie that they feel really has legs and just that should have like a special release. So I did this whole press thing for that, and I think Mammoth's going to be doing it as well. But yeah, it was Don Amici and I got to be very close, and the relationship we had in life rivaled the relationship in the movie. So when he passed away, his son Don Jr. called me, and I remember I was shooting the movie Baby's Day Out at the time. I was in Chicago, and I get a call, and it's Don's son, Don Jr., and he says, "I just want to let you know," and I knew Don had been ill. He says, "Don passed away today. I just want you to know that my father thought of you as another one of his sons." And boy, that was just, I'll never forget that.
Wow.
And I'll always remember that, because I just loved him like a dad. And it was just great. And Warren, I mean, Warren is just Warren Beatty's Warren Beatty. I mean, he's an icon, and it was great fun.
I know this is going to be a tough question for you, Joe, but which movie, take out Criminal Minds out of the series, because which movie did you have the most fun on?
Wow, that's a good question.
Because you've been in a lot of comedy, so I'm like,
yeah, I've been in a lot of
Three Amigos too.
Sometimes it's not the comedy that we have the most fun, though.
Right.
But yeah, Three Amigos was a lot of fun. Three Amigos was a lot of fun, partly because of the people involved. You got Adam Sandler on the set. You had a lot of funny people kind of around you. So there was that. Things Change was actually a good time, because Shel Silverstein, who also wrote it with Mamet, was just such a funny guy in his own right, and so we had a lot of fun on that. But I again, like I have to say, I've been very blessed to be in a profession where, I always say the saying, they say that the three best jobs you can have in life would be to be like a rock and roll star, a great huge rock and roll star, to be a professional athlete at the very top of his game, being the best at whatever sport, to be an actor, a movie star, TV star, or in a fourth one, let's say being an astronaut, go to the moon, do all that. But being an actor is the best of the four, because you can play the other three.
You could be all of them, yeah.
You could be all of them. And so I never forget that. I always think, how lucky am I that I can kind of, I got to play Dean Martin, who was one of my heroes.
I love that, the way you did that.
I got to do that. I got to, do like, I go down the list of the movies and TV shows and theater I've done. I feel just very blessed. And I know, like, if, you think of how many people are on the planet, and if you ask them, hey, would you trade places with Joe Mantegna tomorrow? Yeah, I can understand why a lot of people might say,
oh,
yeah,
absolutely,
I'll do that.
Yeah.
And I get it. And so, believe me, I never forget that. Because as the general said, Jerry said, we all have a job to do, and no job is more important than another's. But needless to say, some can be a little more fun than others.
Absolutely.
And my hat's off to the guy that's digging the ditch, or stamping out the fenders in the plant and digging for the coal, as my grandfather did, or whatever it may be. So it's all honorable, however you make a living.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And as always, Joe, I have a 3-minute clip of the Army, National Army. Do you want to play it, or you want to hold off on it? It's just about it. It's like a trailer about what you can see if people go there, or
whatever. I mean, I'm good for about another 5-10 minutes. So however you want to do it.
All right. Well, let's play the clip, because I want to make sure I get the proper, and then I want to, we'll finish up with Jerry, and because I know you got to go soon. But all right. Yeah. So this is the trailer for people who and please try to support this.
The National Museum of the U.S. Army showcases the history and traditions of the Army through the eyes of the American soldier. As a place to both commemorate and educate, the museum offers military visitors and the general public the opportunity to connect with the remarkable role American soldiers have played in shaping the history of our nation and the world. Highlighting the experiences of soldiers, both renowned and lesser known, the museum honors the accomplishments, commitment, and sacrifice of those who have served, and creates a rich tapestry of history in times of war and peace. Each soldier's story adds a new thread to the fabric of the American story. The museum consists of 3 main galleries: Soldiers' Stories, Fighting for the Nation, and Army and Society, which are filled with hundreds of artifacts that illustrate the Army's significant role in building and defending our nation, as well as detailing Army humanitarian missions and the technological and medical breakthroughs built on Army ingenuity. Other key features of the museum are the Experiential Learning Center and Army Theater. The Experiential Learning Center offers an immersive learning space for visitors of all ages to develop skills and have fun with geography, science, technology, engineering, and math. The Army Theater provides an enthralling introduction to the United States Army. The featured film, Of Noble Deeds, explores Army values and what it truly means to be an American soldier. The theater's 300-degree screen and external sensory elements envelop the viewer in sight, sound, and movement. The Medal of Honor experience invites visitors to learn more about the nation's highest personal military decoration and explore the stories of soldiers who have distinguished themselves through acts of valor. The adjoining Medal of Honor garden honors each of the Army's Medal of Honor recipients. The galleries and exhibits are designed to reflect Army values in action. The museum will also provide a backdrop of history for retirement, promotion, and re-enlistment ceremonies. Held in the museum lobby, these ceremonies will invite visitors to connect with Army traditions. The museum also offers several indoor and outdoor spaces for private events. The Army and the American people have enjoyed a special connection since the early days of the country. Congress recognized the national importance of collecting and preserving significant artifacts of the U.S. Army in 1814 and passed legislation directing the Secretary of War to gather symbols of combat from the young nation's military struggles. More than 200 years later, the museum is the central location to share the history of the Army in its entirety and strengthen the bond between the American people and their oldest military service. At the National Museum of the United States Army, every soldier has a story to tell. And those stories are the stories of us.
That was good. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I give them a little plug. But Joe, I got to tell you, I always appreciate, getting to meet you at the Friars Club was such a cool thing for me. And it always shakes out that every year we get you around Christmas time. So this is like an early Christmas present for me. And as always, my thanks and appreciation for your time. And
no, my pleasure. You guys, like I say, I respect what you do. I support what you do, and that's what it's all about. Makes the world go round.
So what should we keep our eyes open for that you could tell on the horizon for you?
Well, I'm still doing. I just finished the 10th season of Gun Stories, and we shot that, and that's great. And that's coming up next year. The episodes. I've got a new series coming out on Amazon. The tentative title is called On the Spectrum. It's a wonderful show created by this guy Jason Katims, who did Friday Night Lights and Parenthood, and it's a wonderful series. It'll be on Amazon. That we'll start shooting, sometime next year.
Oh, cool.
And then, the beat goes on, on we go. We'll see what tomorrow brings. But God willing, I'll be in D.C. on Memorial Day.
Absolutely. Jerry, any final thoughts?
Yeah, Joe, I can't let you get out of here. And I know that you don't do this for praise and for thanks, but I have to just sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do for so many families, so many men and women in uniform. Whether it's the Veterans United you talked about and, helping people just completely change their lives with their home, whether it's helping our homeless veterans, all the time that you give to the Gary Sinise Foundation, which is global and helps so many people, and even the National Memorial Day concert. I mean, these people's lives that we're doing that for on that day have forever been changed because of something they went through and a loved one that they lost, and yet you honor them. You make them feel good. You make them remember. And I know, again, it makes you very uncomfortable when we thank you, but you just need to know that the men and women in military love you. They thank you.
Well, thank you,
Joe. Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. But just always Thank you, but always know I don't mind being as much the face as I can be, but you guys are the real deal. You know what I mean? You're the body behind the face, and that's my profession. We're we're the court jesters, but it's what you guys do. Make it. You know, it's really nothing. It really is. But thank you for that. I appreciate that. But it's for men like you, the men and women, for what you do. That's why I do it. That's why I'll be now and forever. You know, you'll always have my support.
Well,
And please,
you.
I need, you've got to make sure I have his mailing address.
Oh, I'll get in touch with Danny. I'll send it to you.
Get in touch with Dan. Get yours and his, so I can get you, because I'll get you both a little swag that I think you'll both appreciate.
Oh, I like that swag. Now you're talking my language, Joe. We're Italian. I know what swag is.
Get you some Hollywood swag. Some Oklahoma swag on top.
I get it. Well, Joe, just thank you so much, man. Really respect you. Really, right here. Just love what you do.
Right back at you, Jerry. Right back at you, General.
Joe, before you let me go, every year we always ask this. You want to do a video holiday message for the troops?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, go ahead when you're ready.
Joe Mantegna here. All I can say is I send all of you active military, whether you're retired, active, whatever, you now and forever will always have my support, my love, my best wishes. Be safe. On we go. Take care. What more can I say? You have my heart. God bless you.
That's beautiful, Joe. Thank you. And my best to everybody, and continued success. And above all, stay safe, because you're a national treasure.
No, my pleasure. I love Animal House Radio. I love it. You kidding me?
Thank you so much. Joe Mantegna, everybody.
See you, Jerry. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you all for tuning in. Tomorrow night, we got Belinda Carlisle and Jason Begay from Chicago PD. Jerry, as always, you are amazing. And you're going to like gun stories. It's really cool. And Hollywood weapons, too. Like, they reenact scenes from movies that you're like, that's so bullshit that you're like, you know, how did they do this? And it's like Mythbusters for Hollywood movies.
Yeah, I'm going to really watch it. It's going to be fun.
But once, as always, thank you for being my wingman.
Oh, you bet, buddy. Anytime. It's a blast.
I will talk to you soon, my friend. Thank you.
Okay.